What led this millionaire to suspect something after 20 years of caring for his son? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. On the 40th floor of the Pinnacle building, Marcus Thornton observed the urban landscape with tired eyes. At 55 years old, the successful businessman carried the weight of secrets that threatened to crumble the empire he had built over decades. Marcus loosened his tie, feeling suffocated not only by the accessory, but by the web of lies he had woven around himself. His gaze wandered to the framed photo on his desk. Himself, 20 years younger, next to a smiling teenager. Nathan, his son, or at least the boy the world believed to be his son. The soft sound of knocking on the door interrupted his dark thoughts. "Come in," he called, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. Olivia Reeves, his personal assistant for over a decade, entered the office with the silent grace that characterized her. At 40, Olivia was the epitome of professional efficiency, her presence a reassuring constant amid the chaos that threatened to engulf Marcus. "Mr. Thornton," she began, her voice calm and controlled, "I brought the reports you requested yesterday." Marcus nodded distractedly, turning to face her. "Thank you, Olivia. You can leave them on the desk." As Olivia placed the documents on the polished mahogany surface, Marcus observed her, wondering not for the first time how much she really knew about the secrets that haunted Thornton Enterprises. "Olivia," he called as she turned to leave, "how is Nathan today?" The seemingly casual question made Olivia hesitate for an almost imperceptible moment. "Young Nathan is fine, sir. The physiotherapist arrived half an hour ago for the morning session." Marcus nodded, turning his gaze back to the window. "Thank you, Olivia. That's all for now." When the door closed behind his assistant, Marcus let out a long, tired sigh. He walked to his desk and picked up the framed photo, his fingers tracing the outline of Nathan's smiling face. The accident that had changed their lives forever 10 years ago still haunted him. The sound of tires screeching on wet asphalt, the scream of twisted metal, and then silence. A silence that seemed to have lasted an eternity until the ambulance sirens tore through the night. Marcus closed his eyes, trying to push away the painful memories. When he opened them again, his gaze was determined. He turned on the computer and accessed a special program, protected by several layers of security. On the screen, several windows opened, each showing different areas of the Thornton mansion. His eyes fixed on one in particular, Nathan's room. There, his 25-year-old son was sitting in his wheelchair while the physiotherapist, a young woman named Emma, worked on his legs. Marcus observed the scene with a mixture of love and distrust. Something wasn't right. Small details he had noticed in recent weeks deeply bothered him. A firm knock on the door interrupted his vigilance. Quickly, Marcus closed the monitoring windows. "Come in," he called, composing himself. Alexander Foster, his right-hand man in the company, entered the office. "Mr. Thornton, the board of directors is waiting. We need to discuss the merger with Global Corp." Marcus nodded, standing up. "Of course. Let's go." As he followed Alexander towards the meeting room, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about Nathan. Was he being paranoid, or was his son really hiding something from him? The meeting dragged on for hours. Marcus, normally the epitome of concentration and strategy, found himself struggling to keep his mind focused on the numbers and projections being discussed. His thoughts kept returning to Nathan's room, to those small moments he had captured on the cameras. When the meeting finally ended, Marcus rushed back to his office, locked the door, and reopened the surveillance program. He spent the following hours reviewing recordings from previous days, looking for something, anything, that could confirm or deny his suspicions. And then he saw it. It was a recording from 3 days ago, around midnight. Nathan was alone in his room. He looked around as if making sure no one was watching him, and then, slowly, with evident effort, but without any help, he stood up from the wheelchair. Marcus held his breath. His son took 2 shaky steps before sitting down again, exhausted, but with a triumphant smile on his face. Marcus's hands were shaking when he paused the video. A turbulent mixture of emotions overwhelmed him. Joy at seeing his son standing, anger at the deception, confusion about how to proceed. The ring of his phone yanked him from his trance. It was Olivia. Mr. Thornton, Dr. Harrison is here for your monthly checkup. Marcus had completely forgotten about the medical appointment. Thank you, Olivia. Tell Dr. Harrison I'll be there in a moment. Dr. James Harrison, a man of about 60 with graying hair and thick-rimmed glasses, entered the office minutes later. How have you been feeling, Marcus? The doctor asked as he prepared his equipment. Fine as always, James, Marcus replied distractedly, his mind still on the images he had just seen. Dr. Harrison examined him, asking routine questions and taking notes. When he finished, his expression became serious. Marcus, there's something that concerns me in your latest blood tests. They show some abnormalities. I want to do more tests to be sure. What could it be? Marcus asked, feeling a sudden tightness in his chest. It might be nothing, but it could also be something serious. I'd rather not speculate until we have all the results. I'm going to refer you for some specialized tests this very afternoon. Marcus nodded mechanically, dismissing the doctor with a handshake. When he was alone, he fell heavily into his chair, overwhelmed. In a matter of hours, his world seemed to have turned upside down. The rest of the day passed as if in a fog. Marcus canceled his remaining appointments and retired early to the mansion. During dinner, he observed Nathan with new eyes, looking for signs, any indication that would confirm what he had seen in the video. Nathan, for his part, acted normally, complaining about the low-salt food he was served on medical recommendation, and talking animatedly about a new series he was watching. "Dad, are you okay?" Nathan asked at one point, noticing Marcus's distraction. "You look pale." Marcus forced a smile. "I'm fine, son. Just a little tired from work." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. His mind spun in a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. On one hand, there was the joy of knowing that his son could walk a little. On the other, the anguish of not knowing why Nathan was hiding something so important from him. And hovering over it all, the shadow of concern about his own health. The next morning, Marcus got up early, as was his custom. But this morning, his usual routine was interrupted by an unexpected call. "Hello?" he answered, his voice still hoarse from sleep. "Marcus, it's Vanessa. I need to see you urgently. Something has come up. Something that changes everything." Vanessa's tone put Marcus immediately on alert. "What happened?" "Not over the phone," Vanessa interrupted. "Meet me in an hour at the usual place." Before Marcus could respond, Vanessa had hung up. With a sigh of frustration, he began to get dressed. What new twist did fate have in store for them? Meanwhile, in his room, Nathan looked out the window, his eyes red and swollen from a night of crying and self-reflection. The confrontation with his father had been devastating, but also liberating. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of the lie lift from his shoulders. With determination, he stood up from the wheelchair and took a few shaky steps. It was time to face the truth, not just with his father, but with the world. What Nathan didn't know was that his actions were about to trigger a series of events that would change the course of many lives, including his own. As the sun rose in the sky, illuminating the city, the characters in our story were heading, unknowingly, towards a point of convergence that would change everything. And at the center of it all, a secret that had remained hidden for years, waiting for the opportune moment to come to light. Central Park Cafe was bustling with activity that morning. Among the crowd of hurried executives and mothers with baby strollers, Emma waited nervously, her gaze jumping from one face to another, looking for her mysterious informant. At 10 o'clock sharp, a middle-aged man sat down across from her. Without saying a word, he handed her a manila envelope. "Everything you need to know is in there," the man said in a low voice. "Use it wisely." Before Emma could ask questions, the man had disappeared, losing himself in the crowd. With trembling hands, she opened the envelope. What she found inside left her breathless. Meanwhile, in the small cafe on the outskirts of town, Marcus and Vanessa were engaged in an intense conversation. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked, his face pale. Vanessa nodded gravely. "Completely. The evidence is irrefutable." Marcus ran a hand over his face, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he had just discovered. My God. How could I have been so blind? The question now is, said Vanessa, leaning forward, what are you going to do with this information? Marcus was silent for a moment, his mind working at full speed. Finally, with a look of determination, he said, I'm going to do what I should have done a long time ago. I'm going to face the truth, whatever the cost. As Marcus and Vanessa discussed their next steps at the Thornton mansion, Nathan had made a decision. With slow but sure steps, he descended the stairs, leaving his wheelchair behind. Olivia, who was passing through the vestibule, dropped the tray she was carrying when she saw him. "Young Nathan," she exclaimed, her eyes wide. You're walking." "Yes, Olivia," Nathan completed with a sad smile. "I've been walking for a long time. It's time everyone knew." At that moment, the front door burst open. Marcus entered, followed closely by Vanessa. Seeing Nathan standing, Marcus stopped abruptly. "Dad," Nathan began, "there's something I need to tell you." But before he could continue, another voice interrupted. "I think we all have a lot to say," said Emma, entering the mansion with the manila envelope in hand. The silence that followed was deafening. At that moment, in the vestibule of the Thornton mansion, 5 people looked at each other, each with their own secrets, each about to face truths that would change their lives forever. And so, with the midday sun filtering through the windows, illuminating the tense and expectant faces, began the most dramatic chapter in the history of the Thornton family. Marcus was the first to break the silence. "It seems we all have something to say," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "But before we begin, there's something you all need to know." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I'm sick. I have only a few months to live." The revelation fell like a bomb in the room. Nathan took a stumbling step towards his father, forgetting for a moment his own confession. "Dad, what are you saying?" Marcus looked at his son, a mixture of love and disappointment in his eyes. "I have a rare disease, Nathan. It's terminal. That's why I've been making changes in the company and my will." "Your will?" Nathan interrupted, his voice trembling. "Dad, I don't want your money. I just want you to be okay." Marcus smiled bitterly. "It's too late for that, son. But now it's your turn. What were you going to tell me?" Nathan looked around, noticing the expectant looks of everyone. With a sigh, he straightened his shoulders. "The truth is that I've been pretending. For years I've been able to walk, but I was afraid to face the world, to disappoint you." The silence that followed was heavy, laden with contained emotions. Marcus closed his eyes, as if the weight of this revelation was too much to bear. It was then that Emma stepped forward. "There's more," she said, holding the manila envelope. "Much more." All eyes turned to her. Emma, with trembling hands, took several documents out of the envelope. "These papers reveal the truth about the Thornton family, a truth that has been hidden for years." Vanessa, who until now had remained silent, approached Emma. "Where did you get this?" she asked, her voice laden with tension. "That doesn't matter now," Emma replied. "What matters is what they contain." Turning to Marcus and Nathan, she continued, "According to these documents, you two are not father and son." The revelation fell like lightning in the room. Nathan staggered, seeking support on the nearest wall. Marcus, on the other hand, remained motionless, his face a mask of shock. "What are you saying?" he finally managed to articulate. Emma took a breath before continuing. "Marcus, these papers show that Nathan was adopted in secret. His real mother is Vanessa." All eyes turned to Vanessa, who had visibly paled. I can explain," she began, but her voice broke. Marcus turned to her, his eyes full of pain and confusion. "Vanessa, is this true?" Vanessa nodded slowly, tears forming in her eyes. "Yes, Marcus. Nathan is my son. Our son." The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan looked from Marcus to Vanessa and back, trying to process this new reality. "But how? Why?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Vanessa took a deep breath before beginning her account. 25 years ago, Marcus and I had a relationship. We were young, we were in love. But the circumstances. When I found out I was pregnant, Marcus was already committed to another woman. Your adoptive mother, Nathan. Marcus intervened, his voice heavy with emotion. I didn't know. Vanessa, why did you never tell me? I couldn't, Vanessa interrupted. When I came back, years later, you had already adopted Nathan. I thought it was best for everyone. Nathan, who had been listening to all this in shock, finally found his voice. So my whole life has been a lie. No, son, said Marcus, approaching him. The love I feel for you is real. It always has been. Emma, who had been observing all this in silence, spoke again. There's more. These documents also reveal something about the Thornton Company. Marcus turned to her, his face a mixture of exhaustion and resignation. What else can there be? According to this, Emma continued, the true owner of most of the company's shares is Vanessa. This new revelation fell like a bomb in the room. Marcus let himself fall into the nearest armchair, overwhelmed by all the information. How is that possible? Asked Alexander, speaking for the first time since the revelations began. Vanessa stepped forward. When I left Marcus, I was devastated. My father, wanting to protect me, secretly bought a large number of shares in the Thornton Company. On his deathbed, he inherited them to me on the condition that I not claim them unless absolutely necessary. Marcus looked at her, a mixture of betrayal and understanding in his eyes. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I saw you happy, Marcus, Vanessa replied. I saw how you had built your life, how you loved Nathan. I didn't want to destroy that. Nathan, who had been processing all this information, suddenly stood up. I need some air, he said, before hurriedly leaving the room. Marcus made a motion to follow him, but Vanessa stopped him. Let him go. He needs time to assimilate all this. Silence fell over the room again, each person lost in their own thoughts and emotions. It was Olivia who finally broke the silence. Mr. Thornton, she said softly, what happens now? Marcus looked around at the people who had been part of his life for so many years. Each of them held a secret, each had played a role in this complicated web of lies and hidden truths. Now, he finally said, we're going to face the truth. All of us. And then we'll decide what to do with the time we have left. As he said these words, Marcus felt a sharp pain in his chest. He brought a hand to his heart, his face contorting in pain. Marcus, Vanessa shouted, running towards him. I'm fine, he managed to say, but his pallor said otherwise. Call an ambulance, Alexander ordered, while helping Marcus to sit down. As chaos ensued in the mansion, with Olivia frantically calling for emergency services and Vanessa holding Marcus's hand, no one noticed a figure observing everything from the shadows of the garden. Nathan, with tears in his eyes, watched as they took his father, no, the man who had raised him as a father, out on a stretcher. At that moment, he made a decision that would change the course of Thornton history forever. As the ambulance drove away, sirens wailing into the night, the inhabitants of the Thornton mansion looked at each other, aware that nothing would ever be the same. The truths had come to light, but the consequences of these revelations were only beginning to unfold. And so, with Marcus fighting for his life in an ambulance, Vanessa facing her past, Nathan disappearing into the night, and the others trying to process everything that had occurred, the second chapter of our story comes to an end, leaving more questions than answers, and setting the stage for the dramatic events to come. Dawn found the Thornton mansion plunged into a tense silence. The events of the previous night had left all its inhabitants in a state of shock and bewilderment. In the waiting room of Central Hospital, Vanessa and Alexander waited for news about Marcus's condition, while Olivia had stayed at the mansion waiting for Nathan's return. The sound of hurried footsteps made Vanessa and Alexander look up. A tired-looking doctor was approaching them. Family of Mr. Thornton? He asked. Vanessa stood up quickly. Yes, doctor. How is Marcus? The doctor looked at them gravely. Mr. Thornton suffered a severe heart attack. We managed to stabilize him, but his condition is critical. The next 48 hours will be crucial. Alexander placed a supportive hand on Vanessa's shoulder, who seemed about to collapse. Can we see him? He asked. At the moment, he's in the ICU. You'll be able to see him briefly in a few hours, the doctor replied before leaving. Vanessa fell back into her chair, her eyes full of unshed tears. "This is all my fault," she murmured. "If I hadn't kept so many secrets." Alexander looked at her with compassion. "Vanessa, we all make mistakes. The important thing now is to be united for Marcus and Nathan." At the mention of Nathan's name, they both exchanged a look of concern. The young man had disappeared the night before, and no one knew his whereabouts. Meanwhile, in a modest hotel on the outskirts of the city, Nathan looked out the window, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions and thoughts. He had spent the night wandering aimlessly through the streets, trying to process everything he had discovered. His phone, which he had kept turned off, lay on the bed. With a sigh, he decided to turn it on. Immediately, an avalanche of messages and missed calls flooded the screen. Most were from Olivia, but there was one from an unknown number that caught his attention. With trembling hands, he opened the message. "Nathan, I know you're confused and hurt, but there are things you need to know, things that weren't said last night. Please meet me at the Park Cafe at 2 p.m. Emma." Nathan looked at the clock. 1:30 p.m. After a moment of hesitation, he made a decision. It was time to face the truth, the whole truth. At the Thornton mansion, Olivia nervously paced the corridors. Suddenly, the sound of the doorbell startled her. Upon opening it, she found herself face to face with Emma. "What are you doing here?" Olivia asked, her tone a mixture of surprise and apprehension. Emma looked at her with determination. "I came to talk to you, Olivia. There are things you need to know, things that could change everything." Olivia hesitated for a moment, but finally stepped aside to let her in. "All right, but make it quick. I'm waiting for news from the hospital." As Olivia and Emma secluded themselves in the office to talk, at the hospital, Vanessa had managed to convince the nurses to let her see Marcus, even if only for a few minutes. She entered the ICU with her heart in her throat. Marcus lay motionless, connected to several machines monitoring his vital signs. Vanessa approached and gently took his hand. "Oh, Marcus," she whispered, tears flowing freely down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for hiding the truth all these years. I'm sorry I wasn't braver, more honest." She paused, trying to control her voice. "Please, you have to recover. Nathan needs you. I need you." At that moment, she felt a slight squeeze on her hand. Marcus's eyes opened slowly, focusing on her with difficulty. "Vanessa," he murmured hoarsely. "Marcus," she exclaimed, immediately calling for the nurse. As doctors rushed in to examine Marcus, Vanessa was ushered out of the room. In the corridor, she found Alexander. "He woke up," she said, a mixture of relief and anxiety in her voice. Alexander hugged her, sharing her relief. But the moment of joy was interrupted by the sound of his phone. Seeing the name on the screen, his expression changed. "It's from the bank," he said, stepping away to answer. Meanwhile, at the Park Cafe, Nathan nervously waited for Emma's arrival. When he saw her approach, he felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. "Thank you for coming," Emma said, sitting across from him. Nathan looked at her intently. "What is it that you had to tell me?" Emma took a deep breath before speaking. "Nathan, there's something that wasn't revealed last night. Something about your real father." Nathan felt the world stop. "What do you mean? Isn't Marcus—" "No," Emma interrupted. "Marcus is your biological father. But there's more to this story than you imagine." As Emma began to reveal the complete truth at the Thornton mansion, Olivia listened with growing astonishment to the other Emma's words. "So, all this time," Olivia murmured, trying to process the information. Emma nodded. "Yes, I've been working in secret to uncover the truth. But there's more, Olivia. Much more." At the hospital, Alexander returned with a pale face. "Vanessa, we have a problem. A big problem." "What happened?" she asked, fearing the answer. "Someone emptied the company's accounts. All the money is gone." The news fell like a bombshell. At that moment, the doctor came out of Marcus's room. "Ma'am," he said, addressing Vanessa, "Mr. Thornton is asking for his son. He says it's urgent, that he has something important to tell him." Vanessa and Alexander exchanged worried looks. Nathan was still missing. The company's accounts had been emptied, and Marcus, still in critical condition, was insisting on speaking with his son. Meanwhile, at the park cafe, Nathan listened with growing horror to Emma's revelations. Each word was like a stab, tearing apart the already fragile fabric of his reality. "It can't be," he murmured, his mind struggling to process the information. Emma looked at him with compassion. "I know it's hard to believe, Nathan, but I have proof." She took an envelope from her bag and placed it on the table. "Everything is here." With trembling hands, Nathan opened the envelope and began to read the documents. His face went from disbelief to shock, and then to deep sadness. "Why are you telling me all this now?" he finally asked, looking up at Emma. She took a deep breath before answering. "Because your father, Marcus, is in the hospital, Nathan. And because I believe you deserve to know the truth before making any decisions about your future." At that moment, Nathan's phone rang. It was Vanessa. "Nathan, please, you need to come to the hospital," Vanessa said, her voice laden with urgency. "Your father, Marcus, is asking for you. He says he has something important to tell you." Nathan looked at the documents on the table, then at Emma. "I'm going there," he finally said, hanging up the phone. As he stood up to leave, Emma grabbed his arm. "Nathan, there's something else you should know before you go." At the Thornton mansion, Olivia finished listening to the other Emma's revelations. Her world, like Nathan's, had been turned upside down. "So what do we do now?" Olivia asked, her voice barely a whisper. Emma looked at her with determination. "Now we go to the hospital. It's time for the whole truth to come out." As Olivia and Emma headed to the hospital, Alexander received another alarming call, this time from the police department. "Mr. Foster," said the voice on the other end of the line, "we've received concerning information about Thornton Enterprises. We need you to come to the station immediately to answer some questions." Alexander felt the ground open beneath his feet. What else could go wrong? At the hospital, Marcus struggled to stay conscious. He knew he had little time left and needed to see Nathan. There were so many things to say, so many secrets to reveal. As the city bustled with activity, oblivious to the drama unfolding, the protagonists of our story were heading to the hospital. Nathan, with the weight of new revelations on his shoulders. Vanessa, torn between her concern for Marcus and fear of the consequences of her past actions. Alexander, facing a police investigation. Olivia and Emma, bearers of truths that could change everything. And at the center of it all, Marcus Thornton, fighting not just for his life, but for the opportunity to redeem himself and correct the mistakes of the past before it was too late. The hospital elevator opened and Nathan stepped out, his face a mask of determination. At the same time, Olivia and Emma appeared from the stairs, and Alexander entered through the main door, his phone ringing incessantly. Vanessa, who was waiting in the hallway, watched as they all converged towards her. At that moment, she knew the time for truth had come. There was no turning back now. The door to Marcus's room opened, and the doctor came out with a grave expression. "Family of Mr. Thornton," he said, looking at all of them. "I'm afraid his condition has worsened. If you have anything to say to him, this might be the moment." The silence that followed was deafening. Each of those present carried with them a piece of the puzzle, a truth that could change everyone's fate. And now, faced with the possibility of losing Marcus forever, they had to decide: reveal the truth and risk everything, or take their secrets to the grave. Nathan stepped forward, his hand clutching the documents Emma had given him. "I need to see my father," he said, his voice firm, despite the turmoil of emotions inside him. Conclusion. Thus ends the third chapter of the Thornton saga, a story of family secrets, business ambition, and redemption. With Marcus on the brink of death, Nathan about to confront his father with newly discovered truths, and the rest of the characters carrying their own secrets and motivations, the stage is set for a dramatic and emotional finale. The revelations made so far have only scratched the surface of a much more complex and deep-rooted plot. As each secret comes to light, new questions arise, and loyalties are tested. Thornton Enterprises. Once a solid empire, now finds itself on the verge of collapse, with its accounts emptied and a police investigation underway. But beyond the financial and legal issues lies the human drama at the heart of this story. Marcus, facing his own mortality, seeks redemption and the chance to right the wrongs of the past. Nathan, struggling to understand his true identity and place in the world. Vanessa, carrying the weight of secrets kept for decades. And the other characters, each with their own motivations and internal conflicts. As the story progresses, it becomes clear that the decisions made in the next few hours will have repercussions that will echo for generations. The truth, so long suppressed, is about to come to light in all its glory and horror. And with it comes the possibility of healing, forgiveness, and a new beginning. What will happen when all truths are revealed? Can the Thornton family survive the revelations to come? And more importantly, can they find redemption and rebuild the bonds broken by years of lies and family secrets? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. Nothing will ever be the same for the Thorntons and all those involved in this intricate web of love, betrayal, and family secrets. As Nathan stepped into Marcus's hospital room, the air felt heavy with unspoken truths and looming revelations. The beeping of medical equipment provided a somber backdrop to the scene. Marcus lay in the bed, his face pale and drawn, but his eyes lit up as they fell upon his son. "Nathan," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "You came." Nathan approached the bed, his emotions a tumultuous mix of anger, confusion, and love. "I'm here, Dad," he said, taking Marcus's hand. "What is it you wanted to tell me?" Marcus took a labored breath. "There's so much I need to say. But first, I need you to know that everything I've done, I did out of love for you." Outside the room, Vanessa, Alexander, Olivia, and Emma waited anxiously. Each of them held pieces of the truth, and each wondered how the revelations inside that room would change everything. Vanessa paced nervously. "We should be in there," she said. "There are things Nathan needs to hear from all of us." Alexander placed a calming hand on her shoulder. "Marcus asked to speak to Nathan alone. We need to respect that." Inside the room, Marcus struggled to find the right words. "Nathan, I know about your ability to walk. I've known for a while." Nathan's eyes widened in surprise. "How?" "It doesn't matter," Marcus said, waving his hand weakly. "What matters is why you felt you couldn't tell me. I failed you as a father if you couldn't trust me with the truth." Tears welled up in Nathan's eyes. "I was afraid, Dad, afraid of disappointing you, of losing the special care and attention. I know it was wrong, but I didn't know how to stop." Marcus nodded, understanding in his eyes. "We all make mistakes, son. But there's more you need to know. About your mother, about the company, about our family's true history." As Marcus began to reveal the long-buried secrets of the Thornton family, outside the room, a commotion erupted. 2 police officers had arrived, their faces grim. "We're looking for Alexander Foster," one of them announced. Alexander stepped forward, his face a mask of calm despite the turmoil he felt inside. "I'm Alexander Foster. How can I help you, officers?" The second officer produced a warrant. "Mr. Foster, you're under arrest for embezzlement and fraud. You have the right to remain silent." As Alexander was being handcuffed, Vanessa gasped in shock. "This can't be happening," she muttered. Olivia turned to Emma, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "You knew about this, didn't you? What else are you hiding?" Emma took a deep breath, realizing that the moment of truth had arrived for everyone. "It's time," she said, her voice steady. "It's time for all the secrets to come out." Inside Marcus's room, oblivious to the chaos unfolding outside, Nathan listened in stunned silence as his father unraveled the complex web of lies, love, and betrayal that had shaped their family for decades. As the truth began to emerge, piece by shocking piece, it became clear that the Thornton legacy would never be the same again. The revelations of this day would reshape not just their family, but the entire empire Marcus had built. And as the sun began to set outside the hospital windows, casting long shadows across the city, the stage was set for a final act that would determine the fate of the Thorntons and all those caught in their orbit. As the police led Alexander away, Vanessa turned to Emma, her eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and desperation. What's going on? How do you know all of this? Emma took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. I'm not just Nathan's physiotherapist, she began. I'm an investigative journalist. I've been working undercover for the past year, piecing together the truth about the Thornton family and their empire. Olivia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. You've been spying on us? Not spying, Emma corrected. Investigating. There have been rumors of corruption and illegal activities surrounding Thornton Enterprises for years. I was sent to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, inside Marcus's hospital room, Nathan listened in stunned silence as his father continued to reveal long-buried secrets. Your mother, Marcus said, his voice weak but determined, isn't the woman you've known all these years. It's Vanessa. Nathan felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath him. What? But how? Marcus closed his eyes, pain etching lines across his face. It was a complicated time. Vanessa and we were in love, but circumstances kept us apart. When she discovered she was pregnant with you, I was already married to the woman you've known as your mother. Outside, the commotion continued as Emma began to reveal her findings to Vanessa and Olivia. The company's finances have been manipulated for years, Emma explained. Alexander was just a pawn in a much larger scheme. The real mastermind behind it all is... At that moment, the door to Marcus's room burst open. Nathan stumbled out, his face pale and eyes wide with shock. Is it true? He demanded, looking directly at Vanessa. Are you my real mother? Vanessa's eyes filled with tears as she nodded slowly. Yes, Nathan, it's true. I'm so sorry we kept this from you for so long. As this revelation sank in, a commotion at the end of the hallway caught everyone's attention. A group of FBI agents approached, led by a stern-faced woman in a suit. I'm Agent Sarah Thompson, she announced. We're here to speak with Marcus Thornton and Vanessa Reeves. Olivia stepped forward protectively. Mr. Thornton is in critical condition. He can't be questioned right now. Agent Thompson's expression softened slightly. We understand, but time is of the essence. We have reason to believe that Mr. Thornton and Ms. Reeves are involved in a massive financial fraud scheme that goes beyond Thornton Enterprises. As the FBI agents began to explain the extent of their investigation, Nathan felt his world spinning out of control. Everything he had believed about his family, his identity, and his future was crumbling around him. Inside the hospital room, Marcus listened to the commotion outside, a mix of regret and resignation on his face. He knew that his time was running out, not just in terms of his health, but also in terms of the empire he had built. As the truth continued to unravel and new players entered the scene, it became clear that the Thornton saga was far from over. The revelations of this day were just the beginning of a storm that would reshape not only the family, but the entire business world they inhabited. With the FBI involved, long-buried secrets coming to light, and relationships forever altered, the stage was set for a final confrontation that would determine the fate of the Thornton legacy and all those entangled in its web. As the FBI agents began questioning Vanessa in a corner of the waiting room, Nathan found himself torn between his desire to know more and his concern for Marcus's deteriorating condition. He turned back towards his father's room, only to find Dr. Harrison emerging with a grave expression. I'm sorry, the doctor said, his voice low and somber. But Mr. Thornton's condition has worsened significantly. I'm afraid he doesn't have much time left. If there's anything else that needs to be said, it should be done now. Nathan felt his heart constrict. Despite the whirlwind of revelations and the hurt of years of deception, he couldn't bear the thought of losing the man who had raised him. Without a word, he rushed back into the room. Marcus lay there, his breathing labored, but his eyes clear and focused as they fell on Nathan. Son, he whispered, there's one last thing you need to know. Outside, Agent Thompson was pressing Vanessa for answers. Ms. Reeves, we have evidence of large sums of money being funneled through offshore accounts linked to both you and Mr. Thornton. Can you explain this? Vanessa's face paled. "It's not what you think," she began. But her voice trailed off as she saw Emma approaching with a determined look. "Agent Thompson," Emma interjected, "I have information that might shed some light on this situation." She produced a USB drive from her pocket. "This contains documents and recordings that reveal the true extent of the Thornton Empire's dealings, including some that implicate high-ranking government officials." The agent's eyes widened as she took the drive. "How did you obtain this?" "As I mentioned earlier, I'm an investigative journalist. I've been working on this story for over a year," Emma explained. Meanwhile, in Marcus's room, Nathan leaned in close to hear his father's words. "The company," Marcus wheezed, "it's not just a business. It's been a front for something much bigger, something that goes back generations in our family." Nathan's brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean, Dad?" Marcus's eyes darted to the door as if checking for eavesdroppers. "The Thornton family. We've been guardians of a secret that could change the world if it ever got out." Just then, Olivia burst into the room, her face flushed with urgency. "Nathan, the FBI. They're asking about something called Project Prometheus. Do you know anything about this?" At the mention of Project Prometheus, Marcus's eyes widened in alarm. He grasped Nathan's hand with surprising strength. "Listen to me, son. In my office, behind the painting of your grandfather, there's a safe. The combination is your birthday. Inside, you'll find everything you need to know about our family's true legacy. But be careful. There are people who would kill to get their hands on that information." As Nathan tried to process this new bombshell, alarms suddenly began blaring from the medical equipment. Dr. Harrison and a team of nurses rushed in, pushing Nathan and Olivia aside. "He's going into cardiac arrest," the doctor shouted. "Start CPR immediately." Nathan watched in horror as the medical team fought to save his father's life. In the chaos, he barely noticed Vanessa slipping into the room, tears streaming down her face. Outside, Agent Thompson was engrossed in the contents of Emma's USB drive, her expression growing more serious with each passing moment. She looked up at Emma, her eyes narrowed. "Do you realize what you've uncovered here? This goes far beyond corporate fraud. This is—" Before she could finish, a commotion erupted down the hall. Alexander, still in handcuffs, was being led back towards the group by two police officers. But something was wrong. The officers looked dazed, and Alexander's demeanor had completely changed. "I'm afraid this little charade has gone on long enough," Alexander announced, his voice suddenly cold and authoritative. With a swift motion, he broke free from the handcuffs as if they were made of paper. Agent Thompson reached for her weapon, but Alexander was faster. In the blink of an eye, he had disarmed her and was holding her own gun to her head. "Now then," he said, his eyes scanning the group, "let's talk about Project Prometheus, shall we?" As the situation spiraled into a hostage crisis, with Alexander revealing himself to be far more than just a corporate executive, the true depth of the Thornton family's secrets began to emerge. What had started as a tale of family drama and corporate intrigue was rapidly evolving into something far more sinister and far-reaching. In Marcus's room, the medical team continued their desperate efforts to revive him, unaware of the dangerous situation unfolding just outside. Nathan stood frozen, torn between his dying father, the mother he had just discovered, and the escalating crisis beyond the door. The Thornton saga had taken a dark and unexpected turn, and it was clear that the revelations to come would shake the very foundations of their world. The hospital corridor had become a scene of tense standoff. Alexander, now revealed as something far more dangerous than a mere corporate executive, held Agent Thompson at gunpoint. The other FBI agents, hospital staff, and family members stood frozen, unsure of how to proceed. "Project Prometheus," Alexander said, his voice unnaturally calm, "is not something for the likes of you to meddle with. It's beyond your comprehension." Emma, her journalistic instincts kicking in despite the danger, spoke up. "What exactly is Project Prometheus, Alexander? What are you trying to protect?" Alexander's eyes flickered to Emma, a cold smile playing on his lips. "Ah, the intrepid reporter. Always seeking the truth, aren't you? Well, let me give you a taste of what you're dealing with." With his free hand, Alexander reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metallic object. It looked like a simple pen, but when he clicked it, a holographic display suddenly materialized in the air before them. Gasps of shock echoed through the corridor as images of advanced technology, strange symbols, and what appeared to be otherworldly landscapes flashed in the hologram. Project Prometheus, Alexander continued, is humanity's gateway to the stars. The Thornton family has been its custodian for generations, protecting it from those who would use it for their own gain. Inside Marcus's room, the medical team's efforts had finally paid off. The steady beep of the heart monitor indicated that Marcus had been stabilized, though he remained unconscious. Nathan, torn between staying with his father and confronting the unfolding situation outside, made a decision. He turned to Vanessa, who stood pale and shaken by Marcus's bedside. "Stay with him," Nathan said firmly. "I need to deal with this." As Nathan stepped out into the corridor, he was met with the surreal scene of Alexander holding everyone at bay, with the holographic display still shimmering in the air. "Alexander," Nathan called out, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "This isn't the way. Whatever Project Prometheus is, whatever secrets our family has been keeping, there has to be a better way to protect it than this." Alexander's gaze snapped to Nathan, a mixture of surprise and something akin to pride in his eyes. "Ah, the prodigal son speaks. Tell me, Nathan, did Marcus finally reveal the truth to you? Do you understand the weight of the legacy you're meant to inherit?" Before Nathan could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. "That's enough, Alexander." All eyes turned to see Marcus, pale and weak but standing, leaning heavily on Vanessa for support as they emerged from the hospital room. "Dad, you shouldn't be up," Nathan started, but Marcus raised a hand to silence him. "It's time," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper but carrying an undeniable authority. "Time for the truth to come out. All of it." Marcus's eyes swept across the assembled group, the FBI agents, Emma the journalist, Olivia, and finally resting on Nathan. "Project Prometheus isn't just about advanced technology or space exploration," Marcus began. "It's about the very nature of our reality and humanity's place in it." As Marcus spoke, the holographic display from Alexander's device began to change, showing images of DNA strands, star maps, and strange alien-looking structures. "Our family," Marcus continued, "has been entrusted with knowledge and artifacts from a civilization far beyond our own, a civilization that seeded life on Earth millions of years ago and has been guiding our evolution ever since." The revelation hung in the air, almost tangible in its weight. Emma's journalistic mind was racing, trying to process the implications of what she was hearing. Agent Thompson looked torn between disbelief and the undeniable evidence floating before her eyes. Nathan, however, felt a strange sense of clarity washing over him. Somehow, deep down, he had always known there was something more to his family's legacy. "But why keep it secret?" Nathan asked. "Why not share this knowledge with the world?" Marcus exchanged a look with Alexander before answering. "Because humanity isn't ready, son. The power contained within Project Prometheus could elevate our species to unimaginable heights, or it could lead to our utter destruction. It's a responsibility that must be shouldered carefully by those prepared for its burden." As the full scope of the Thornton family's secret began to unfold, it became clear that this was more than just a tale of corporate intrigue or family drama. It was a story that touched on the very origins of humanity, the destiny of our species, and the profound responsibilities that come with holding the keys to such cosmic secrets. The hospital corridor, once a place of healing and quiet reflection, had become the stage for revelations that would change the course of human history. And at the center of it all stood Nathan, suddenly aware that the life he thought he knew was just the tip of an iceberg of cosmic proportions. The Thornton saga had transcended family and business, venturing into realms of science fiction and ancient astronaut theories. As the truth continued to unfold, one question remained: how would this newfound knowledge shape the future of not just the Thornton family, but of humanity itself? The revelation hung in the air, heavy with implications. For a moment, the hospital corridor was silent. everyone trying to process the magnitude of what Marcus had just disclosed. Agent Thompson was the first to break the silence. Mr. Thornton, you realize how incredible this sounds? You're talking about extraterrestrial interference in human evolution. This is the truth, Alexander interjected, lowering the gun but maintaining his authoritative stance. A truth that has been protected by select families, including the Thorntons, for millennia. Emma, her journalistic instincts in overdrive, stepped forward. If what you're saying is true, it changes everything. Our understanding of history, of science, of our place in the universe. The public has a right to know. Marcus shook his head weakly. It's not that simple, Ms. Emma. The knowledge contained within Project Prometheus is powerful. Yes, but it's also dangerous. In the wrong hands, it could lead to unimaginable destruction. Nathan, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. But Dad, Alexander, don't you see? Keeping this secret, hoarding this knowledge, it's tearing our family apart. It's led to lies, manipulation, and now this. He gestured at the tense standoff around them. Vanessa, still supporting Marcus, nodded in agreement. Nathan's right. The weight of this secret has been too much. It's time for a change. Marcus looked at his son, a mix of pride and concern in his eyes. What are you suggesting, Nathan? Nathan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of all eyes on him. I think it's time we find a middle ground. We can't keep this entirely secret anymore, but we also can't just release everything at once. We need a plan to gradually introduce this knowledge to the world in a way that won't cause panic or be misused. Alexander scoffed. And how do you propose we do that? Our ancestors have kept this secret for thousands of years for a reason. Maybe that reason isn't valid anymore, Nathan countered. Look at how far humanity has come. We've split the atom, we've mapped the human genome, we're exploring Mars. Maybe it's time we trusted humanity with the truth about its origins. As Nathan spoke, something changed in the air. The tension began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of possibility. Even Alexander seemed to be considering Nathan's words. Marcus smiled weakly. You sound like your grandfather, Nathan. He always believed that one day we'd need to share our knowledge with the world. Agent Thompson, who had been listening intently, stepped forward. If what you're saying is true, this goes beyond any one agency or government. We'd need a global coalition, a carefully planned disclosure process. Emma nodded enthusiastically. I could help with that. As a journalist, I know how to shape narratives, how to present information in a way that informs without causing panic. Olivia, who had been quiet throughout this exchange, suddenly gasped. The safe. Nathan, your father mentioned a safe in his office. Maybe what's inside could help us figure out how to proceed. Nathan's eyes widened as he remembered. You're right. Dad, is it okay if I go to check it out? Marcus nodded. Go, son. But be careful. The contents of that safe are more valuable than you can imagine. As Nathan prepared to leave for the Thornton mansion, Alexander stepped forward. I'll go with you. You'll need protection, and I think it's time I started making amends for my actions. The group quickly formulated a plan. Nathan and Alexander would go to retrieve the contents of the safe. Meanwhile, Marcus would be readmitted to the hospital for proper care, with Vanessa staying by his side. Agent Thompson would begin the process of assembling a trustworthy team to handle the potential disclosure, while Emma would start drafting plans for how to present this information to the public. As Nathan and Alexander left the hospital, the weight of their mission heavy on their shoulders, the others settled in for what promised to be a long night of planning and preparation. The Thornton family secret was on the verge of becoming the biggest revelation in human history. The question now was, how would the world react to the truth about Project Prometheus and humanity's cosmic heritage? As they drove towards the Thornton mansion, Nathan couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning of an even greater adventure. The truth was out there, hidden in a safe behind his grandfather's portrait, and he was about to uncover it. The fate of not just the Thornton legacy, but potentially the entire human race, now rested in their hands. The next few hours would determine the course of history, and Nathan was at the center of it all. As Nathan and Alexander sped towards the Thornton mansion, the city lights blurred past them. The car was filled with a tense silence, both men lost in their own thoughts about the magnitude of what they were about to uncover. Nathan broke the silence first. "Alexander, how long have you known about all of this? About Project Prometheus?" Alexander's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "I've been involved for over 2 decades. Your father recruited me when I was fresh out of college. I thought I was joining a cutting-edge tech company, but I quickly learned it was so much more." As they pulled up to the mansion's gates, Nathan couldn't help but see his childhood home in a new light. Every shadow seemed to hold a secret, every corner a potential hiding place for cosmic truths. They made their way quickly to Marcus's office. The painting of Nathan's grandfather loomed large on the wall, his eyes seeming to follow them as they approached. "Here goes nothing," Nathan muttered as he carefully removed the painting, revealing the safe behind it. With trembling fingers, he input his birthday as the combination. The safe clicked open. Inside was a single ornate box made of a material Nathan couldn't identify. It seemed to shimmer with an inner light, covered in symbols that looked vaguely familiar, yet utterly alien. "The Prometheus Codex," Alexander breathed, his eyes wide with awe. "I never thought I'd see it in person." As Nathan reached for the box, a sudden tremor shook the mansion. The lights flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. "What was that?" Nathan exclaimed, his heart racing. Alexander's voice was grim in the darkness. "We're not alone. They found us." Before Nathan could ask who they were, the sound of breaking glass echoed from downstairs. Alexander grabbed the box in Nathan's arm, pulling him towards a hidden panel in the wall. "Quick, in here," he hissed, revealing a secret passage. "Your father had this installed as an escape route. We need to get the codex to safety." As they hurried through the narrow passage, the sounds of intruders echoed through the mansion. Nathan's mind raced with questions, but survival instinct kept him moving forward. They emerged in the mansion's vast gardens, the night air cool on their faces. Alexander led them to a concealed garage, where a nondescript car waited. "Get in," Alexander ordered, starting the engine. "We need to rendezvous with the others. It's not safe here anymore." As they sped away from the mansion, Nathan saw figures in black tactical gear swarming the property. "Who are they, Alexander? What do they want?" Alexander's face was grim in the dim light of the dashboard. "They're part of a shadow organization that's been trying to get their hands on Project Prometheus for years. They call themselves the Obsidian Order. If they get the codex, it could mean the end of everything we've been working to protect." Nathan clutched the box tightly, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "Where are we going?" "To a safe house," Alexander replied. "Your father set it up years ago as a contingency. We'll meet the others there and decide our next move." As they drove through the night, Nathan's phone buzzed with a message from Emma. "Hospital compromised. Marcus and Vanessa evacuated. Agent Thompson creating diversion. Meet at coordinates attached. Be careful." The gravity of the situation hit Nathan full force. This wasn't just about family secrets anymore. They were in the middle of a covert war, with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. "Alexander," Nathan said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I need you to tell me everything. No more secrets. If we're going to face this Obsidian Order and protect Project Prometheus, I need to know what we're really dealing with." Alexander nodded, his eyes never leaving the road. "You're right. It's time you knew the full truth about your family's legacy, about the aliens who seeded life on Earth, and about the power hidden within that box you're holding." As Alexander began to unravel the full story of Project Prometheus, Nathan realized that his life had irrevocably changed. The world as he knew it was about to be turned upside down, and he was at the center of it all. The car sped through the night, carrying with it secrets that could reshape human history. Behind them, the Obsidian Order gave chase, determined to seize the Prometheus Codex at any cost. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and the burden of a cosmic legacy. Nathan Thornton, once a young man pretending to be disabled, now found himself the custodian of humanity's greatest secret and perhaps its last hope. As the city lights faded behind them, he steeled himself for the challenges ahead, knowing that the fate of not just his family, but of all mankind, now rested in his hands. The Thornton saga had transcended family drama and corporate intrigue, evolving into a tale of cosmic proportions. And this was just the beginning. As Alexander's car sped through the night, he began to unravel the full story of Project Prometheus to Nathan. The young Thornton listened intently, his mind reeling with each new revelation. It all began millions of years ago, Alexander explained, his eyes fixed on the dark road ahead. An advanced alien civilization, which we call the progenitors, arrived on Earth. They found a planet rich with potential but devoid of intelligent life. So, they decided to conduct an experiment. Nathan's grip tightened on the Prometheus Codex in his lap. An experiment? Alexander nodded. They seeded the planet with their own genetic material, kickstarting an accelerated evolution process. Humanity is the result of that experiment. But the progenitors didn't just leave us to develop on our own. They've been guiding our progress, subtly influencing our development throughout history. And my family? Where do we fit into all this? Nathan asked. The Thorntons, along with a few other families across the globe, are descendants of humans who made direct contact with the progenitors thousands of years ago. These families were entrusted with safeguarding the knowledge of our true origins and managing the gradual introduction of advanced technologies to humanity. As Alexander spoke, Nathan's phone buzzed again. It was a message from Vanessa. Safe at secondary location with Marcus. His condition stable. Be cautious. Obsidian Order has eyes everywhere. The Obsidian Order, Nathan mused. Who exactly are they? Alexander's expression darkened. They're a splinter group, former members of the Guardian families who believe humanity should have full, unrestricted access to the progenitors' knowledge and technology. They don't care about the potential consequences. They think they can control the power, use it to reshape the world in their image. Suddenly, a pair of headlights appeared in the rearview mirror, approaching fast. We've got company, Alexander growled, accelerating the car. Hold on tight. The pursuing vehicle rammed into them from behind, causing the car to swerve. Nathan clutched the codex tightly as Alexander fought to maintain control. There's a weapon under your seat, Alexander shouted over the screeching of tires. Get it out. Nathan fumbled beneath the seat and pulled out a sleek, alien-looking device. What is this? Progenitor technology. Point and think activate. It'll do the rest. As their pursuers pulled alongside them, Nathan aimed the device and focused his thoughts. A pulse of energy erupted from the weapon, enveloping the other car in a strange, shimmering field. To Nathan's astonishment, the pursuing vehicle suddenly slowed, as if moving through molasses, before coming to a complete stop. Time dilation field, Alexander explained with a grim smile. They'll be stuck in there for a few hours from their perspective. For us, they're out of the picture. As they sped away from the neutralized threat, Nathan's mind was buzzing with questions. So, this codex, he said, looking down at the box in his lap. What exactly does it contain? Alexander took a deep breath. It's the key to everything, Nathan. The complete history of the progenitors' involvement with Earth, the true potential of human DNA, and instructions for using the most advanced technologies they left behind. In the right hands, it could usher in a new golden age for humanity. In the wrong hands, it could lead to our destruction, Nathan finished. Alexander nodded solemnly. Exactly. That's why your father and his father before him dedicated their lives to protecting it. And now, that responsibility falls to you. As they approached the coordinates of the safe house, Nathan felt the weight of his newfound legacy settling on his shoulders. He was no longer just Nathan Thornton, the son of a wealthy businessman. He was the custodian of humanity's greatest secret, the bridge between Earth's past and its potential future. The safe house came into view, a nondescript building on the outskirts of the city. As they pulled up, Nathan saw Emma and Agent Thompson waiting for them, their faces tense with anticipation. This is it, Alexander said, turning off the engine. Once we step out of this car, there's no going back. Are you ready for this, Nathan? Ready to embrace your true heritage and all that comes with it? Nathan looked down at the Prometheus Codex, then at the waiting figures of Emma and Agent Thompson. He thought of his father, of Vanessa, of the lies and truths that had brought him to this moment. Finally, he turned to Alexander, his eyes filled with determination. "I'm ready," he said firmly. "It's time to write the next chapter of the Thornton legacy, and perhaps the next chapter of human history." As they stepped out of the car, the first rays of dawn were breaking on the horizon. It was the beginning of a new day, and for Nathan Thornton, the beginning of an extraordinary journey that would shape the fate of humanity. The Thornton saga had evolved into something far greater than a family drama or a corporate thriller. It had become a cosmic odyssey, with the fate of Earth hanging in the balance. And Nathan, once a young man living a lie, now stood at the center of it all, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in the name of protecting humanity's greatest secret and guiding its destiny among the stars. He understood the importance of this work for her, and was proud to see how Isabel had transformed into a respected and admired leader in her community. "You're making a big difference in these women's lives," he told Isabel one night, after a particularly emotional meeting. "I'm so proud of you." Isabel smiled, feeling Prospero's love and support in every word. "I couldn't do this without you," she replied sincerely. "You gave me the courage to face my past and move forward. Now I want to help other women do the same." Days turned into months, and the support group continued to grow. Isabel found a new fulfillment in her work, something that went beyond anything she had ever experienced before. She knew she was making a difference, and this gave her a sense of purpose and satisfaction that she had never known before. Over time, Isabel and Prospero began to think about expanding the family. The idea of having another child brought a new level of excitement to their lives, and they began to make plans for the future. Isabel knew that, alongside Prospero, any challenge could be overcome, and she was ready to face anything that came her way. Isabel's journey had begun with pain and betrayal, but now she was in a place of peace, love, and fulfillment. She had overcome adversities, found true love. She knew that just as she had found strength in the stories of other women, she could now offer support and guidance to those who were still in the midst of the storm. Isabel began researching how to start a support group in her community. She reached out to some friends who had gone through divorces and discovered that there was a real need for a space where women could share their stories, exchange experiences, and find strength in each other. With Prospero's support, she began organizing the first meetings, which soon became a success. The support group grew quickly, and Isabel found herself surrounded by women of all ages and backgrounds, each with their own story. And his eyes widened in fear as he recognized the police officer who had humiliated him hours before. Jack stopped a few meters away, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender, trying to convey that he didn't represent a threat. "I just want to talk," Jack said, his voice soft, almost pleading. He knew he needed to be careful, that the slightest sign of aggression could make the young man run away again. The boy didn't respond, but he didn't move either, which Jack took as a sign that there was still hope to fix things. "I made a mistake," Jack continued, taking a careful step forward. "I was wrong to judge you without knowing what you